Hello, my name is Richard Portelance from EdGate, and welcome to the EdGate Powers Education podcast. Today, I am very excited to be speaking with Michael Campbell. We are stepping into Q1 2025, talking about international education, how it is affecting, how many companies are trying to break into new markets. We're talking about technology, and in a week's time, we'll be gearing up for the Q1 podcast. Michael will be joining us on that podcast. So if you get a chance, look below. There's going to be a registration link, and please join us for that exciting discussion. But in the meantime, you get to hear Michael and myself chat about all things education. So without further ado, Michael Campbell.
Thanks, Richard. I'm Michael Campbell. I'm the president of Advancing Global EDU. Our company has been around for about 7 years. We do consulting for small to mid-sized companies that are in the education space, mainly in edtech and the education sectors, publishing specifically for schools, districts, and higher education. Our other business that we do is that we own a school, and the school is called Dual Bridges Academy. Dual Bridges Academy offers a dual diploma from here in the U.S. and in Mexico. And we will be taking in our first class in fall of 2025.
Wow, that's got to be so exciting for you, Michael, and for your team. Congratulations on the Dual Academy. Let's talk about that a little bit. What prompted the formation of that school? What were the reasons behind it, and then where are the pupils coming from?
So it's a great story. My business partner, Sasha De Silva, is a former diplomat, and she was the education attaché for the government of Mexico to France. And so as a result, she brought that opportunity to us in the fall, and we have built that business plan. Brought in some investors, and did the research. And parents are really looking for a education experience for their kids, based on our research with the absenteeism. We've seen in the media where the public schools, charter schools, and even private schools, in some cases, they are not happy with the educational experience that they have. So, this gives them the opportunity to have education anytime, anywhere. And our goal is to offer them that experience, as well as all the services such as tutoring, and art, all those kinds of things, as an online experience. So they'll have the same experiences that they can get. They'll have physical education. They'll have all of those kinds of things as an online experience.
So as an online experience, you're going to be drawing kids from just the U.S., or are you going to be cross-border with the education?
No, based on our interest, we look at about 30% will be from Latin America, 30% will be here in the U.S., and the rest will be global. And those could come from Asia, and from the Middle East, and from Europe. And that is strictly because of offering a dual diploma. Offers those students the opportunity for a global experience, and they can really use that to go to university here in North America. That we are the place to be for university, and and Canada were probably the number one and number two places to go for higher education. And so, and there, as we did our research, there's some outstanding universities for technical careers in Mexico. So they have some world-class universities in Mexico. And of course, in Europe, you have some of the best universities in the UK and in France and places like that as well. But you often hear about international schools sending their kids to University of Michigan, University of Toronto, places like that. But with a dual diploma, these kids can have that opportunity to go anywhere they want to go.
Well, that's exciting to hear, and there's a ton of questions that I have about that experience. So, are you aligning to specific sets of standards? If it's going to be a dual degree, are you beholden to certain types of standards in order to provide that curriculum to meet requirements?
Yeah, so in order to get our accreditation, we had to get accredited in Mexico, and then we had to get accredited here in the U.S. And our accreditation, we're looking at accreditation in New Mexico. So our accreditation here in New Mexico, well, and frankly, my offices are here in Chicago area, but the school will be based in New Mexico, and it's an online school to be specific, and the curriculum will be based on a New Mexico curriculum, and so it will align with the New Mexico curriculum for the U.S. So kids who get a diploma will get a diploma from New Mexico, and then they will also get a diploma from Mexico, and those will align with the specific accreditation from Mexico. And we will work with folks like EdGate and people like that to help us align those our curriculum and better take those two curriculums together so that our kids don't have to double up on courses, and that's not what we want. We want kids to have a great experience, and the parents to have a great experience, and so it's a bilingual school, and so that they may be taking the history of Mexico, but they'll also take American history and things like that as well. So
fantastic. So to tug on that thread just a little bit further, New Mexico, like many other states, adopted Common Core at some time, and then they've diverted from Common Core a bit. And some states are very far away from what Common Core was, and some states are fairly close. What's your experience with that? And is that a consideration too as you build curriculum?
Yeah, of course. We not only for our school but for our clients, we often look at the curriculum for our clients, and whether they're in Virginia, whether they're in North Carolina, whether they're in California, Illinois, or Texas, we have to look at the curriculum, because each of these curriculums are a bit different these days, because the Common Core has changed a bit for each of these states. Especially, you have Texas, who doesn't even participate in the Common Core. You have a lot of these states who have completely changed what they started out with the Common Core, and they've added all kinds of new things to it. Florida, all of these kinds of states have added new things. You have NGSS standards, which are science standards. You have all these different kinds of standards that our school will be looking at and adhering to. And so I think standards are really important for any company and for any school to take a look at, and aligning their solution to those. So you need to take a look at those and really think about aligning your curriculum, aligning your solution to those standards, no matter what state. And as we work with global schools, our companies sell to global schools, like in Dubai and different places like that. A lot of these states, a lot of these countries require that they align their standards to a certain state curriculum. So like in Dubai, in the past, they have required that a certain school align their standards to like the Connecticut standards or the New York standards in order to get their accreditation. And so so you have to look at those kinds of things too if you're going global.
So just to put a fine point on kind of that whole theme, one of the things that EdGate has done recently is launched a resource on the website for standards comparison, because as you were just describing, whether it's NGSS, Common Core, C3, international standards, there's, people want to understand how far apart they are from the Common Core to get to those different states, like Texas in Q4 last year, we did a whole a webinar on Texas specifically and how that is shaking out. But so the maps, if you go to the maps on edgate.com and go to resources, you'll see the standards comparison. So you can click on any particular state and it'll give you a range and percentage of how close that content is, and that their standards are to Common Core, so you can kind of do some planning against that. And of course, within the platform, the exact platform, you can run those comparisons and come up with alignments and global alignments within the system. So I just mentioned that. I think it's an important resource that they're offering for free for people to look at these things, because if you're a ed publisher or an ed tech provider and you're trying to find new opportunities in new states, the first thing you need to do is align, and then you have to comply with whatever those regulations are. And so understanding those things is really the first step in finding new contracts and winning new business, right?
Exactly. And I can say that as an educator, that's one of the first things that they always ask is, is your solution aligned to the standards?
Yeah. So, and I think I would say as a consultant, and that I've consulted in ed tech for a number of years as well, and similar to you, had ed tech startup 10-12 years ago. So I've been in this field for a long time. Tell me about your experience in helping global companies break into the U.S. market. Is that something that you face often?
Yeah, so it's always funny that global companies come to us, and because they look at the U.S. as being such a huge country, and they really look at they look at like a country like Australia, they look at a country like India, and they or China, and they look at how big the opportunity is, and then they look at the US and they say, oh, it's such a huge opportunity for us. What they don't realize is that when they come to the US, it's really like coming to 52 different countries, and so when we tell them that it's a bit of a surprise for them, and so then we have to kind of educate them on the different regions and the different curriculums and the different things that are going on between red states, blue states, all the kinds of things that are happening within the country. And while they kind of know a lot of that kind of stuff, they don't realize the detail that it makes in running your business and coming to those and selling and marketing to educators. And really what that means is getting to help educators and really help students succeed in those schools. And that's really what they want to do. I mean, we all want to make money, but the reality is all these companies really want to help teachers, help administrators, and help students succeed. And really what we want to do is help them find that niche that helps those stakeholders succeed. And so we start off with helping them get an overview of what that niche needs to succeed. So that may be talking to them about the curriculum, talking to them about, Title I students, talking to them about professional development, whatever the case may be. It's really about helping them get to a successful win for them.
And with that landscape changing so drastically here, with the new administration coming in, we're going to see even more disruption to the space. So as a consultant, how do you best guide people on how to approach the market, and what are some of the challenges that you see on the horizon here as folks try to win new business within the U.S. market, or maybe it's, as you said, 52 different markets, so you're pinpointing specific states?
Right now, we're telling people, there's a lot of people who are reticent to think about our market because of all of the challenges with the new administration. All we hear, in the media is, oh, they're going to tear down the Department of Education. Well, frankly, everything that I've heard is that it would take 60 votes in the Senate to tear down the Department of Education. They don't have the votes to do that. There's a lot of rhetoric out there, and frankly, the money is follow the money.
Yeah.
Title I is still going to be there. These schools have to offer the services to Title I students. So those kinds of services are still going to be there. There's a tremendous amount of need for those kinds of things. There's a tremendous amount of need for professional development. If you notice, the scores for reading and math came out in the last couple of weeks. There was a lot of talk in the media about how schools have, dropped in scores. There was a lot of, high ranking scores, but there was a lot of low ranking scores there, which ultimately brought the scores down. Look at where those districts where the scores were down. Those districts need help in math and in reading. Those are real opportunities for schools and school districts. So what I would say is go where the money is at and follow and not necessarily where the money, but where the need is at. And so we're looking at companies coming in from globally and domestic companies, and we're talking to them about, it's not just about what you hear in the media. It's about following the need and helping students and teachers succeed.
Yeah, if we look at those states, some of the things that are occurring today, because Michael, you were just kind of digging into more specifically about some of the challenges that we're seeing within the space in the U.S. and the market. And certainly the Department of Ed will still stand unless Senate is switched. But the fact that the states are becoming much more divergent poses other challenges to providers. I'm curious your take on how companies can address those changes and more quickly adopt their technologies to new markets. If you have any thoughts on what you're advising companies in that regard.
I think as much as many want to talk negatively about things that are happening in Florida and Texas, I still think that there are really good opportunities for our industry in those states to help students and helping teachers succeed. In reading and in mathematics and in other areas in our business. We we tend to look at what the extremes are in our society, and a lot of times we can get past that and look at what the middle ground is and how we can work our business to that middle ground and really help those people who need help. And I think that ultimately our business needs to focus on how we can help students and teachers and get past the rhetoric that's out there. And if you can get past the rhetoric that's out there, then you have the opportunity to really succeed in this business. The opportunities that are out there still remain to be there. You're still going to see RFPs for student information systems. You're still going to see RFPs for tutoring, all of those kinds of things. You're still going to see RFPs for a tremendous amount of different kinds of EdTech and learning solutions that are out there, and you need to take advantage of those.
So within those RFPs, what we're seeing a lot is things like third-party reviews. We're getting a lot of companies call to help with that. There's those compliance issues. When you kind of look at the compliance landscape, is that something your company is assisting with and getting familiar with, or do you have resources that you send people to?
Exactly. We do a lot of research and work with other, if there's in-depth research, we have other partners that we work with that do that. But yes, so our business does do the research on those kinds of things for compliance and for different kinds of research of going through that. We, definitely work with companies like EdGate, people like that, to look at curriculum compliance and mapping curriculum and things like that for our companies. But then, past that, we also look at, other ways of looking at the impact that is impact studies that are needed for students and for school districts, and how some of these solutions are vetted for these RFPs.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense, Michael. Within that kind of thread, as we're kind of looking at compliance, there's obviously the research is going to be really important. Understanding what those states, how they're diverging and becoming individualized to some extent. But when you talk about tech, and if I'm a provider and I'm trying to get into new schools, we're seeing a lot more activity with advanced technologies, you know, whether machine reading and learning or other things like AI. What's been your experience so far in those advanced technologies, and how do you see that progressing?
It's funny you should ask that. Yesterday, I would say that of the 5 or 6 meetings that I had yesterday, probably 4 of them involved AI, and they involved AI everything from assessments to syllabus, uh, understanding your syllabus or writing your syllabus for your class, to individualized learning for the classroom or for the student. And so I see AI, and let me say this: I do think that teachers and administrators need to have a better understanding of AI, and we all do. And I think schools and school districts need to have some kind of parameters in place about AI and have a policy in place. I was at a seminar back in early January, and there was uh, a parameter, or somebody said something about of 800 districts. They asked how many had an AI policy in place, and only like 2 districts had an AI policy in place. And I think that what happens when that does it, we become the wild, wild west, and everybody has something different in place. And I think what we really need to do is have something in place instead of nothing in place.
Yeah.
But what that being said, I do think that there are so many positive things about AI and about machine language learning that we can really help teachers and students succeed in the classroom. It doesn't replace teaching, but it really helps them in the classroom. And what that means is that we can give teachers more time with students and give them what they do best, is teach, instead of staying up late at night grading papers and doing things like that. And what it helps students do is really give them what they need best, is that individualized learning plans that really gives them that opportunity to dive into the material that they learn best with.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, and it kind of brings my mind to application matters, and whether it's from the root of why you're using a certain technology. Like you can't, technology for technology's sakes is fairly useless, but when you have a good basis and it in a good application, there can be an intersection and an improvement. And when you talk about individualized learning plans, we as human beings, want to continue to evolve education for all individuals. It's kind of what we see in our schools, but it becomes difficult. I think we have more of an opportunity today than we've ever had to make education personalized and meaningful, and engage all students and all learners. Do you, I guess my question would be, what's your take on that? How do you see that evolving, and how can companies best kind of start to move towards that direction so that, we do, high tide does raise all boats?
Yeah, and you're going to see, I think, more and more of that, because at the conferences that I've been at recently, it's all we hear about is AI. And I think that the innovators are out there, and they are helping their colleagues raise that bar that's out there. And like I said, the more people who get on board with AI, um, and understand that it's not going to replace their jobs, it's going to help them in the classroom. Every day, they can use this to write assessments, to and write effective assessments that reach students where they're at, and to give assessments that really help them understand their learning, not just give assessments for assessment's sake. Um, and help students with their reading comprehension, help students, I saw one yesterday that really said, okay, we read a book, like a teacher could really say, speak to the AI and say, okay, this week we read The Great Gatsby. Tell me about chapter, 5.
Yeah.
And the AI would write questions about chapter 5. And then he or she could go in and basically edit the questions that the AI wrote, as opposed to that teacher sitting there for hours writing questions, or you know and so I just found that completely fascinating, that the AI could, and the teacher could just say that, and they could do that. They didn't even have to type it out. um, and and it wasn't just that. It could have been a geography class or anything. And um, and and then we all know that AI is not perfect, so you do have to edit it, and it's only as good as the information we put in. So I would say, having things like EdGate, aligning your curriculum and mapping your curriculum is important, because having that best of class, that bespoke information becomes more important for the AI to have. So yeah, so that's what I would say about that, because it brings up the quality of education for everybody.
You said, and the basis is so critical. When I think about these, the larger companies that are succeeding in the AI space, those companies are based on, and they have other technologies. It's not really just AI. It's natural language processing. It's data analysis and analytics. It's advanced text analysis. There's things behind it. There's basis. It's not just saying I have AI and I'm going to now have it do X.
Exactly.
And in the case of EdGate, they've been around for 27 years, and one of the things I've always been drawn to EdGate, kind of the way they have built their business. It was never, they do have technology, advanced technologies applied, but it's based on 27 years of experience. And when they first built their taxonomy for alignment, it was all done by hand, and it was figured out, and then they applied processes. They got patents on those processes, they developed it, and then they started to add technology to enhance it. And so today, fast forward 20 years from that, is now they have a system that uses the taxonomy to take standards, God bless you, and be able to properly align them using the taxonomies that are in place, that have been patented. And are there some AI components? Yeah, but it's the other advanced technologies behind it, similar to what you would find in an open AI or some of these bigger models, large language models, that really power that technology. And I bring it up in that context because I think when we're looking at companies, and companies ask, me as a consultant or you as a consultant, how do I break in? It's really having that strong basis, that foundation of whatever it is that you're trying to do in place without the technology. And then how do you apply technology to enhance and to make it more effective, right?
Exactly. And I think as you see more teachers use it in the classroom and understand, hey, I'm not afraid to use it. Like, it's not a big brother kind of thing, and it's not something that if I touch it, it's going to. I I I kind of, I look at it as when I first started I was a teacher first, and I was a innovator, and I used technology in the classroom. I mean, I used laser disc in the classroom. I don't know if you remember those.
Sure.
Um, and so they, you know, people were like afraid to use these kinds of technologies in the classroom because it might make them look stupid in front of their class or whatever the case may be. And so they continued, and it's the same kind of thing. Teachers don't want to look, dumb in front of their class or anything like that. And so I get it. And so as they continue to feel comfortable with the solution and with the technology, we're going to see more and more uptake of the use of the technology.
Yeah, that I think that makes a ton of sense. My wife is a classroom teacher, and she even said something last night about AI and not really understanding. They're applying certain AIs within the construct of her classroom, and but she's not comfortable yet using it fully, and that's okay. It'll come around as people get more familiar and more comfortable in figuring out what the niche is, and it may not be for everyone. But if I'm an ed tech provider and I'm providing solutions, and I look at, well, I want to be able to sell in Vermont as well as Texas, right? There's technologies that will help you do that, whether it's alignment or other places, to make that happen quicker, more efficiently, and with higher quality, right? Because when you try to talk about opening new markets, I think it's hard to imagine trying to, let's even put a US aside in the 52 different curriculums if you look at internationally. And if I'm a company and I'm trying to break into India, into Australia, how do you do that effectively without the use of technology?
Exactly.
Yeah. Coming back around in terms of what we want to accomplish here, you brought up individualized learning, because I think that's a really important point, and something that we're aspirational, right? As I think anybody in education tends to be that way. At least I've found when I meet people who are doing things like you're building a school, Michael, and I think that's fantastic. And it's not only something you do to monetize, but I get the sense it's a labor of love. This is something that
Exactly. I mean, we thought about this, and I think that it's a great way to help kids and help parents who haven't found what they wanted in their local school, in private school, or in public schools. And ultimately what we want to do is help kids succeed. And I myself and my business partner, we both have kids who had special needs, and so we saw our kids struggle through the system. My daughter is a freshman in college now, and I was happy that our local public schools had all the services that we needed to get her through school and prepared for college. A lot of schools and districts don't have what we had, and we want to be able to help parents and kids get to college, or get to wherever they want to be, whether that may be getting a certification in HVAC, or being getting a CNA certification, or whatever that may be. What we want is to have kids that can enter the workforce, happy and healthy, and ready to go for their lives.
There's with the advancement of CTE, it's really proliferating. More and more students are choosing trades, which I think is fantastic. I think we got a little bit wrong-headed in saying everybody go to college. And so it's a natural adjustment, but that means now there's a proliferation of CTE standards to the tune of like 7-1 over education standards. It's crazy how many CTE standards are out there. So again, trying to bring alignment to those and to have educators and edtech publishers be able to provide curriculum. There's got to be some technology in there to make those connections happen quickly and effectively. I know EdGate's doing a bunch of work through their Journeys Map program on aligning CTE standards and boiling out skills. So it's basically they're extrapolating skills from the standards and saying, here's the skills that are needed. And then if you take an assessment on an individual, you can do a crosswalk and a gap analysis on, okay, here's the skills that you have, here's what you need in order to get to that particular career. So I thought that was that fascinating use of technology to start to bring about some connection. Are you seeing a lot of that? And as you start your school, how do you look at the trades and CTE and help people move towards those avenues?
Well, in our first year, we're not offering CTE at the school, but it's on our roadmap. But we have other clients that are, and we know that the federal government is actively here in the U.S. is actively promoting CTE, and there are a lot of grants and things like that going to states and to districts for the CTE programs. In fact, the community colleges are getting quite a bit of that. And on the technology side, there are multiple ways that can be taught with that via, the web and via AR, VR kinds of things like that. And I'm so glad to hear that EdGate is trying to bring those standards, around, because there are multiple standards out there, and we really need to find the best of the best that are out there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm doing a little consulting for a company that's in the AR VR space for fire rescue training, and so I'm seeing that evolution of, okay, here's a great technology. They've actually gotten a patent on the properties of smoke and gases within a virtual environment, which I've found incredibly fascinating. Whether the gas drops or expands or whatever it's doing, so that the fire protection people can start to go in there with their training. But there's certainly CTE components to that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to align. All right, so we're getting tight on time, so I do want to remind people that there's going to be a webinar. Mike's going to be with us in a couple of weeks. Down below is a link. Please sign up for the webinar. We're going to have other panelists. We're going to be talking about these topics and more, and we'd love to have you join us. Mike Campbell, if you had to kind of give a vision of what you see the future looking like for individualized learning, for technology, what does it look like in 20 years for you?
I think one thing is that kids will have almost their personal AI working with them as their we have small group settings in the classroom. They'll go to class and they'll have their teacher, but they'll have almost their AI that works with them to give their instead of small group setting, they'll have an AI that works with them to not only give them their individualized learning plan for the day after they give the teacher setting. So I think there's some really neat things that could happen with technology and with AI and different things like that to really help us get to that point. We're going to have to really think out of the box and not do the old school thinking of school anymore. And I think that that's what's going to have to happen for us to really do that.
Thank you so much, Michael. I agree wholeheartedly, and looking forward to what that future has to offer. And I look forward to talking to you again in a few weeks on our webinar.
Well, thanks for having me today.
My pleasure.